oak trees as well. Just take a look at that big one right over there. You got that Spanish moss hanging right down from it. That's already littering a lot of the streets here in Tallahassee. The big concern all along for folks here, those trees coming down as Hurricane Michael and power outages. We could be looking at projectiles, a lot of debris just covering the roads, so that road blockages, power outages for some time to come. Now, they did pre-position a bunch of crews in this area, more than 1,000 utility workers already here in place. You've got road clearing crews and power crews as well. But here's the thing. They won't be able to get out there and do their work once the winds reach more than 35 miles per hour. We're expecting about 5 to 8 inches of rain here in Tallahassee. We could see some tornadoes as well. So just to reiterate from Council, if you have not left your home, now is not the time to do so. Stay off the roads and seek shelter immediately.
George, hunkered down at this point. Okay, Victor, thanks very much. Also want to go to Maggie. Really, it is hitting hard now in Panama City Beach.
George, just like a switch flipped, all of a sudden this hurricane has come on hard and fast. We have been out here since 3 a.m. and back then there was hardly any wind, hardly any rain. And now about an hour ago, the winds have picked up, the rains have picked up. We actually had to come inside our hotel just a little bit because it was no longer safe for us outside. A huge sign at the gas station just next door flew off the street, so we're taking safety a bit inside, but we're expecting things to only get worse, these winds to only keep increasing here for us here in Panama City Beach.
Okay, Maggie, and David, you're back in Panama City as well, where it seems to have calmed down. Are you inside at this point?
Yeah, we're inside, just inside where we are staying inside this hotel I mentioned you earlier. Obviously, we make sure that the hotels that we do stay at have reinforced walls. To give you an idea, the fire alarm is now going off in the building. I'm not sure if you can hear. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but you can see all the families who are gathered here. These are families who heeded the warning to leave their homes, come to this hotel, and to ride out this hurricane, this Category 4 hurricane that's now hitting. They have wind gusts 119 miles per hour right here in Panama City. I'm not going to go back outside for obvious reasons, but Dale, if you could just show folks at home what it looks like as a Category 4 barrels through the eye wall coming ashore of Fort Panhandle right now. Obviously just an extraordinary thing to witness, the power of these hurricanes and the fact that this one is really the size and scope of nothing they've ever seen before in this part of the Florida Panhandle as it whips by. The entrance to the hotel that we're staying in, and when we were outside, we were protected somewhat by giant cement walls and U-Haul trucks and vans that are parked outside to barricade the area, and yet you're still seeing that through the front door of the hotel. You're hearing the alarms go off inside the hotel. The power went out some time ago. We actually saw the transformer explosion just down the street, George. But this is just really obviously an awesome sight to see, but it illustrates the real danger that authorities here the last 24 hours and telling people to get out, to try to seek shelter, to come to one of these hotels, or to go further inland. This is what all of these families who are standing behind the camera are watching along with us here this afternoon unfold here. The only blessing, if there is one, with a hurricane this large is that, as you've been pointing out with Sam, that it is moving fairly quickly, moving much more quickly than what we saw in Florence, and certainly in Harvey, where those came ashore and then they just sat there and they dumped water. And look at the scope of the water that you see over my shoulder here. And yet this hurricane is moving more quickly than those previous hurricanes that we've reported on. It's somewhat remarkable that you have states of emergency in several states already. They're now preparing for the possibility that it'll be a hurricane strength when it travels through Georgia and beyond. And Ginger, we've now moved inside just as you did earlier. You got the early brunt of this, but we're now seeing the sheer force as this makes its way through Panama City. And the last wind gust that I saw reported, Ginger, was 119 miles per hour right here in Panama City.
And David, no matter where you are in the storm, I just saw something I have never seen in real life. I've seen it on video, and I have seen it in a 3 that we made to describe storm surge. I saw taken off of its foundation and rolled down the street. That is the type of storm surge we're talking about right here in Mexico City at this moment. You can't see it, but we could just start to make out, and I saw the roof rolling down the street, and that was one of the structures that I had showed you earlier. I can't see if any of the others have made it. The water is still at least 10 feet below. I told you, we're on a third floor. We have rooms fourth and able we needed to, but I'm going to tell you, anything that was on this 15 minutes just is gone. Is going to be washed away. It is going to be one of those concrete slab situations when this all calms down. My heart is racing. I have never, George, seen something like an entire home, a well-built home, rolling down the street, except for we made this 3D graphic so that we could explain to people after Sandy happened what storm surge really does to a structure, what it can do to your home, and how they come in. We just watched that happen in real time. And I'll tell you right now, it makes you shake.
I can hear it in your voice, and it's just staggering. A staggering, Ginger. And we're super glad that all of you are at least a little bit higher up, and if at any moment it comes time for you to go, we've got to get...
We feel still.
I want to bring in Congressman Neil Dunn now. He represents this district from through Tallahassee and Panama City. Boy, you're going to have a lot of work ahead of you, Congressman.
Yeah, this is an unprecedented storm in Florida history. We've never seen anything like it. It's huge. It's, as you said, a category 4 surge is literally unprecedented.
And Congressman, do you have the sense that the people, your constituents, had heeded the warnings and had evacuated in time?
I wish I could tell you that I felt comfortable about that. I think that we have had a shortage of evacuations. Our shelters hit a certain amount of fullness. We have 4 shelters open, and people in them, 2 or 3 are full, but the other one is not. Honestly, there's going to be a lot of damage. It's hard to predict because it's just that we don't have a model for it. I spent most of the morning working with FEMA and other agencies to plan and prepare for pre- and post-disaster support, supplies, people, services. We're working with the utilities, the first responders, the hospital, transportation, the police.
Yeah,
now, the storm is upon us, and everybody has to shelter in place and take no chances, no risks. Just be take on your neighbors.
Are you in Washington?
No, I'm in Bay County right now. I'm in the Emergency Operations Center. We've lost power and our internet, and we're on generators.
And that is going to be the number one issue going forward as you start the cleanup. You're going to have to bring in power generators from all across the country.
Fortunately, we've seen some really good responses to hurricanes in the last couple of years. Florida's stood some very robust recovery from natural disasters programs, and those were all dress rehearsals for this.
And we can see and we can feel the power right now. Congressman, thanks very much. I want to go to Washington now. Tom Bossert, President Trump's former Homeland Security Director. Tom, you were on point, I think, for Irma and Hurricane Harvey back in 2017. This one seems to be hitting just even harder.
Yeah, George, thanks. I'm really worried at this point. I was also a FEMA employee, believe it or not, deployed into Florida in field operations for Hurricane Ivan in 2004. Hit the same or roughly the same area of the Panhandle, and we had a little bit more time. That was the 4th hurricane at the end of a 6-week period of time in which the entire state evacuated, unfortunately, 3 times in a row. And so people had a lot of heightened awareness. All reported it, and what we're doing here today is providing good information to people to allow them to make good decisions. But I'm worried that the evacuation rates weren't high enough. I'm worried that we didn't have enough time to prepare adequately as a community from the local state. We're worried and reminded at this point. Unfortunately, history tells me that we'll see some death as a result of this.
Tom, what is the key to getting those evacuation rates up? Was this simply a factor of speed here?
Yeah, it's a little bit of speed. It's a little bit of time to act, right? At some point, some procedures take a little bit longer than you have, and so you have to make trade-off decisions. It's mostly about speed and time, but it's also messaging. I think a lot of what we did as we saw this crop up was understandably start reporting on Florida, but the people didn't necessarily get all the attention that they're now getting, but they're going to see hurricane force winds and rain.
Take us behind the scenes,
though, George, that's going to leave behind damage that's going to last for years.
Take us behind the scenes now. Of course, you're not there right now, but you've been in situations like this, behind the scenes in the White House, in FEMA right now. What's happening?
Yeah, I've spoken to Administrator Long and his senior team today and leading up to it this week. I have a pretty good sense of what's happening. People are mobilized. The entire workforce is shifting all over the country to bring resources. Some of them are tired. People are getting in a rhythm of 24-hour operations, 12-hour shifts, and operation cycles and periods where they do planning and so forth. But right now, as we sit here, it's a messaging game and a little bit of a waiting game. Everything that we could do is pretty much done, and now we have to wait to kind of let the dust settle and get in as quickly as possible.
Can't go in and